Hello, hi, good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. And I'm sure that if you're a part of this webinar, then you've probably already applied for medicine and have also started receiving some interview calls. Now, what is an interview, right? And why do I actually need to prepare for an interview? What is an MMI? I'm sure there are a lot of questions in your mind, and you've probably searched on the internet quite a bit about interviews and how to prepare yourself. And you're probably still wondering, how do I do this? This is scary. How do I present myself as a very strong candidate when everybody else has probably a lot of similar qualities or similar achievements as I have, right? So let's dive right into it. Let's understand what is an MMI. What is the purpose of an MMI? What exactly are universities looking for in a good candidate, right? And what is going to help you stand out compared to the other candidates? Just to introduce myself, my name is Rashmi. I head the admissions and the medicine department here with UniHawk. A very warm welcome to all of you for today's session. So let's understand a little bit about different types of interviews. Now, when we talk about a medicine application, most of you would probably have applied to UK, some of you to Europe as well. Now, irrespective of which country you're applying to, majority of the universities do conduct an interview of some sort. And there are different types of interviews that are conducted. The first one, of course, is a traditional MMI. So what is an MMI? They're a multi-mini interview. So there are many of them. There are about 6 to 8, sometimes even up to 10 stations. And they're all mini stations, right? So each station is about 8 minutes to 10 minutes long. And that's it. So you have exactly 8 to 10 minutes to leave an impression. Now, it is often said that, the first impression is also the last impression. However, when it comes to an interview, that is not necessarily the case, and which is why an MMI works in your favor. Because let's say we mess up at one station and we don't get sufficient points, it does not mean that we're immediately bumped off the list, because you still have another 5 or 6 stations where you could actually do a good job and actually cover up for the mistake or the error that you committed in the first station. So enjoy the benefits of MMI and identify how to use them. Don't let how you perform on one station impact how you perform on the rest of them. Instead, just focus on one station at a time and deliver your best. Each answer that you provide can leave a huge impact on the listener. And what is really important, instead of trying to figure out what is the perfect answer, what does the university want me to actually say, focus on what is your experience. Focus on what is it that you have learned through your experiences and what can you share with them and what can make it, a more lasting impression. So, for example, how when you write an essay and you have a hook, right? So similarly, in an answer, especially in an interview answer, you want to start off with something that's very impressive. And then you go on to explain what it is. And you go on to explain your experience. You start giving examples to justify and strengthen whatever it is that you have stated. Now, some universities instead conduct panel interviews. Now, what is a panel interview? You will face a panel of interviewers, which is usually 2, sometimes up to 3 people, and they all ask you questions. So you will be given a topic to read about or to a question to think about and come up with some ideas and points. And then each panelist has a set of about 2 to 3 questions that they have to run you through. So it is very important that you have thought of a lot of different points for that one topic, because you will be answering at least 5 to 6 questions on the same topic. Now, based on your answer, the questions will also change accordingly. For instance, if you give an example of the importance of empathy in a certain kind of communication, your questions could now be related more to maybe empathy, the difference between empathy and sympathy, a time when you actually witnessed empathy in an interaction and how you have inculcated that as a part of your own personality, etc. Or let's say your answer was leaning more towards teamwork, then the question may change accordingly. The third type of an interview is a traditional interview, which is a one-on-one interview where the questions are primarily related to your personal statement, your experience, why medicine, why this university, etc. So these traditional questions are usually more common, especially in the European universities, and very rarely in the UK schools. But there are some UK medical schools which will have maybe one traditional interview station or a personal insight station where they will ask you about some of the activities and experiences that you have highlighted in your personal statement. The fourth one is a written assessment. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have actually come across this, but if anyone has applied to, let's say, the University of Buckingham and have been invited for an interview, you would know that the second stage, so the first stage was the application, and the second stage is actually a written assessment. Now, this is extremely different from the MMIs, which we traditionally practice, and that when we are told that, oh, you have to speak for 5 to 7 minutes, and we're prepared for that. But to be able to write these down and type these down within that given time frame can be a bit challenging. So this is a new type of an interview, which they introduced in 2022 for the first time, and they have decided to continue with that. So how it works is they will provide you with details, just like in a traditional MMI. They will provide you with some content for you to read through. And then you will have specific questions that come up on the screen for which you need to type down the answers. Now, when you're typing in the answers, keep in mind a couple of things. One is the structure of your answer. Two is the time frame that you have within which you have to answer that question. Three is the strength of your answer. So please remember that unlike an oral answer where the interviewer is not actually recording your statements, with a written answer, it is more evident if we make mistakes. So very important that we're not just randomly stating an opinion, rather we're explaining a viewpoint, or we are presenting a very strong argument with specific reasons as to why we hold a certain belief, or what experience did we have which supports our opinion, etc. So a written assessment is technically slightly harder than an oral interview. Also, the University of Buckingham has traditionally given an offer directly after a written assessment if the answers are brilliant, whereas if they feel that the student has fantastic ideas but has not been able to express himself too well, they may invite you for an oral round as well, which would be your third stage of interviewing. Now, our goal, of course, should be that we clear the second stage and we get an offer letter. And so quite a bit of practice is definitely recommended, especially for the written assessment. When it comes to the oral assessment, you have a team of counselors, you have trainers, and you have a lot of support that's available through different resources. But when it comes to a written assessment, the experience is also slightly limited at the moment because, like I said, this is an interview type that was only introduced in 2022. So it is important that you do practice it quite regularly, work on your typing skills, work on structuring an answer in a written format and not just in an oral format, and keep practicing as much as possible. Now, one of the most important questions that a lot of people ask is, how am I being assessed? How do I get a certain score in, let's say, an interview? So do they have like a set guideline on communication skills, teamwork, empathy, things like that? Is that what I'm being assessed on? And is there a specific number that I'm given? Now, to be honest, the way an interview is evaluated differs in each university. So the kind of points that you're allotted is different at each university, and the weightage that is given to an MMI and different sections of evaluations also have different weightage. For example, with some universities, The focus is primarily on empathy and your ethical skills. Whereas in some, the focus is on communication skills and your ability to express your ideas very clearly. There are some where there's a lot of importance given to transferable skills. So there may be questions about um, what skills or what qualities have you picked up from non-medical or even non-academic activities that you've been a part of, and how are you going to transfer those skills into the field of medicine, right? So in different universities, there are different qualities that are assessed and ranked separately or differently. However, in general, you are evaluated on a lot of these skill sets that we have listed here. So one thing that we want to show is that we have a growth mindset and not a fixed mindset. What I mean by that is when we are presented with an ethical question, a lot of times, due to conditioning, due to our opinions, due to what we have witnessed in life, we hold very strong opinions on certain things. And we believe that something is wrong and something is right. But what we don't understand is that in a field like medicine, especially, with so many different factors having an influence on a situation, life is not always black and white. There is a lot of gray area, which you have to understand and appreciate and respect. Although it may not be to your liking, you may want to choose black or you may want to choose white, but you must understand that there are points where they kind of overlap as well. What I basically mean by that is, in an ethical situation, do not hold extremely strong opinions. Always remember that there are multiple factors which could have an influence on a certain situation, and that could change your answer or change your response accordingly. So similarly, prepare yourself to look at the pros and cons of every situation and then take a rational decision which is not influenced by your emotions at all. Secondly, in any ethical situation, always remember it is the medical information which is the most relevant and not personal moral judgments, etc. So any answer that we give in an ethical situation is purely on the basis of what will work best. Is there a better strategy that I can apply here? Are there different solutions that I can consider here? What are the facts that I'm aware of? And how do I make a rational judgment based on that, causing the most amount of benefit to all the parties that are involved, right? Secondly, you also want to mention all the ethical pillars that we have spoken about earlier as well. So there are four main ethical pillars. The first one is autonomy. So when you have an ethical question that revolves around patient autonomy, you definitely want to mention this and how this is either supported or unsupported, and therefore your actions or your decisions may vary. The second one is beneficence. So any action that we take should be for the benefit of the patient. And if there is a situation that goes against it, then of course you would consider this as an important factor in taking a decision. The third is non-maleficence. So you want to guarantee and you want to make sure that you're not doing any harm knowingly. And last is justice, which is where every patient deserves to be treated with respect and care, right? Irrespective of what their lifestyle choices were, irrespective of what career they were in or what decisions, correct or incorrect, they made in their lives, etc. So when you're presented with an ethical question, do mention the ethical pillars, do refer to them and explain how and why each one of them could be relevant in that situation. They also evaluate you very strongly on empathy. At the end of the day, what makes you different from any other doctor is your empathy skills, is the way you're able to relate to a customer and make them feel more comfortable and confident in you. A doctor-patient relationship is extremely important and extremely tender. It is a relationship that needs to be built with a lot of care and trust, because the patient is actually entrusting you with a lot of personal details and information, which they may not even share with their family members. So how do you earn that trust? How do you gain that confidence? Is through empathy, is through active listening, understanding the patient, being open to what the person has to say, and having good insights into what could be the reasons why they're behaving a certain way or why they're acting a certain way, and molding your response or molding your answers accordingly. This is something that's going to become very evident in any role plays that you do, or even in any situations that ask you to assess and evaluate a given scenario and asks you, how would you respond in a situation like this? Whether it's a role play or not, empathy is something that will definitely be evaluated and be something that's extremely important in building a strong relationship with a patient. So this is again something that you want to portray through your role plays. For instance, when there are small cues that the actor is able to give you, whether it's a sigh, whether it is a disgruntled yes, there are always meanings behind these things as well, right? You know how when you're in a conversation with someone and there is a certain gesture or a body language action that they use, and you immediately understand that they're upset with you, they're angry, or they're disinterested, etc. Observe these and integrate those into your answers during a role play. And of course, the critical thinking skills. So when we talk about analysis, so let's say a data analysis, and they present you with a graph or a pie chart or some kind of an article, or maybe a medical article, that they would want you to read and analyze, and then draw logical conclusions from them. And then there's communication skills, which is being evaluated in every single conversation, whether you're talking about your interest in medicine or about your interest in pursuing this medicine at a particular university. Creativity. So when we talk about coming up with creative solutions, when we talk about addressing concerns, educating people, creativity becomes really important. For instance, one of the students had, one of the universities rather, had a station where they actually had to work with clay modeling, right? So they were given lumps of clay and they would have to model that into something very creative and useful to educate someone about something, which was the theme. So there are a lot of very interesting interview stations that you could come across, and very different ways in which you are evaluated on these as well. Open-mindedness, again, when we spoke about ethical situations, being open-minded, being receptive to what the other person has to say, and also to be receptive to different opinions that people may hold. So it is important that you understand that there could be different perspectives and different ways in which people evaluate a certain situation, which could have an impact on the way they're looking at a question or at a solution. So open-mindedness is again something that you're constantly evaluated on throughout an MMI session. And last but not the least is, of course, the problem-solving skills. So when we are presented with problems, when we are presented with challenges, it becomes important to understand how do we approach the problem. Are we looking at solutions? Are we just listing problems, but are we also considering different possible ways through which we can actually evaluate and eliminate this problem? For instance, there are probably questions that are going to come up about the NHS and some of the issues, such as, let's say, a long wait time, or the funding problems, or maybe the way they dealt with the COVID situation, and how would you resolve this? So being able to identify a problem is only the first step, but the most important step comes when you're actually able to provide a solution. A lot of times we try to think of extremely complex, complicated solutions because we think that that's what the universities want to hear. But sometimes a simple answer or a simple solution is all that is needed to correct that situation. So you also want to think a bit more creatively here and come up with solutions for problems rather than just being able to list a lot of different problems. Now, the most important part, which is, of course, how do I prepare for this, right? What do? I know that I have an interview. I know that this is the date. I have already researched my university. What do I do? Now, there are a few things that we need to go in a very structured manner, which is the first step is to research the format. So let's identify what is the format of the interview. Are they going to have multiple stations? Do I have 6 stations? Do I have 10 stations? Is it a written format? Is it a panel interview? In majority of the cases, the universities will reach out to you and let you know that this is the format of the interview, and they will also provide you with a few sample questions or a few resources using which you can actually prepare for this. So once you're familiar with what to expect, that makes it a lot easier for you to prepare for this as well, and to also go in with understanding what the prerequisites are. For example, in some of the universities, you're not allowed to take notes. You're not allowed to carry anything with you, like a paper or a pencil or anything. And a lot of us during practice, we're used to making notes, right? So it becomes important for you to be aware that, will this university actually allow me to carry a paper? And I think it is safer for you to go with the assumption that you will not be allowed. So just be ready to take mental notes and be prepared with a structured answer. The next one, of course, is to practice your communication skills. Now, how do I practice communication skills? Well, you can reach out to your mentors, your coaches, and your trainers and your counselors here at UniHawk, where we can actually guide you and help you with the practice of communication skills and practice of different interview stations as well. Apart from that, what can you do? You can speak to your friends. You can ask your parents to ask you questions so that you're able to answer and they can evaluate. Or you could even record yourself on the phone, or you could stand in front of a mirror and just talk to yourself and see how you express yourself. Where do you get stuck? What ideas are working? Which ideas are not working? And I personally feel that it's always a great idea for you to record yourself, because when you record yourself and you visit that video is when you understand that, oh, I'm repeating myself. Or look at my posture, I'm losing focus the minute I talk about something else. I'm digressing from the topic, etc. So it helps you to analyze yourself and understand, is this the right approach, or how else can I change my answer, etc. It gives you sort of a reality check. Be prepared to think on your feet. Now, irrespective of how well prepared we are for an interview, there will always be a couple of curved balls that we're not prepared for, right? A couple of googlies, and we're like, where did that come from? No one ever told me I could expect a question like that, right? Well, that's that's something that the interview teams usually take pride in, that, oh, we came up with something that's very unique. You never expected this, and we caught you off guard, right? So our goal here again is not to get flustered. So the minute you come against a question which is completely unfamiliar to you, it is okay, right? They're not testing you on anything that you don't know. So they will always test you on skills, on qualities, on articles or information that either they have provided you with, etc., or skills, qualities, etc., which you already possess. We just need to tap into the right memory. We just need to tap into the right experience to be able to explain that in the right fashion. So instead of getting flustered, think about that question really quickly and see which situation does it apply to. Where have I experienced something like this? Was it in my doctor shadowing? Was it in my community service? Is it at my school? Was it during a doctor visit? Was it during a family gathering, etc.? And then try to relate that to the same topic and express it clearly. Be yourself. Right now, it is very important that you are just yourself and you're presenting an answer the way you would talk, not like how a university would expect an answer to be. Because again, I will keep repeating myself that there is no perfect answer for an MMI. The universities do not expect you to come up with, stock answers, which they can find off the internet. They want to know who you are. They want to understand if you are the right fit. They want to see your commitment. They want to see your ability to blend yourself into a medical curriculum, which is very taxing, very demanding, very stressful, but you are ready for it. And that's what you want to show them, right? So just be yourself and enjoy that journey. A couple of more tips. Rehearse some of the common questions. Now, a lot of times we look at very common questions like, oh, why medicine? Why our university? Or how has COVID impacted people? Very extremely common questions, which we expect. But the universities have changed their MMI patterns a little bit this year, and they have come up with a lot of interesting questions, which are very different from the traditional ones that we were expecting. So you may come across questions such as, try to convince one of your friends and cheer them up because they're struggling with their exam workload, and all you need to do is cheer them up. Has nothing to do with medicine at all. Has nothing to do with why this university. But then what exactly are they evaluating you on? They're evaluating you on teamwork. They're looking at your communication skills. They're looking at your empathy. They're looking at your ability to think on your feet, and to what extent would you go, or what would you do to actually cheer someone up. So and again, see here, they're basically evaluating on something that is transferable in the medical field. So when you become a physician, and let's say, unfortunately, you have to break bad news to someone, how are you going to make it easier for them, right? That's basically what they're looking at. Arrive well rested and early. So, of course, if you're doing this online, then just make sure that you're ready, your system, your internet, you've checked everything, and that you're not going to, run helter-skelter at the last minute. Dress professionally. Very important that you wear, professional clothes, formal clothes. So for boys, that would mean a blazer and a tie, and the same goes for girls, actually, as well. Now, I would also recommend that when you rehearse and when you're practicing, also, you should dress formally, and you should keep your video on the computer, or, if you're standing in front of the mirror, if it's an in-person meeting, etc. And practice and see how you look in the body posture that you maintain, which helps you to show confidence. Very important. So everybody likes talking to people who are confident, who are positive, and who fill the room with energy. You know how there are some people who just walk into a room, and whether it's a history class or a geography class, it doesn't matter. There's just this confidence and positivity that kind of oozes out of them. And that's exactly what you want. When you walk into a room, you want to own that room. Whether this is on a Zoom call, whether this is on a Microsoft Teams, or whether this is in person, you have it in you and you can do it. And all you need is a little bit of a preparation, and then we should be good to go. Now, unfortunately, I think we don't have a lot of time for me to continue with any question session or practice questions, but what I will let you know is some of the resources that you could use to prepare yourself for MMIs would be the NHS guidelines. Please do go over them. Read through the Good Medical Practices. It's a very short book, about 40 pages, issued by GMC, very important. Familiarize yourself with a few medical articles, because it is important for you to know a lot of medical terms, common medical terms. And also, there is, of course, UniHawk Prep, where we can guide you and help you as well. Like I said, unfortunately, no time for practice questions, but some of the tips to structure your answer really well. Make sure that there is an introduction, that you have a couple of very strong arguments in favor to support what you have to say, and you give relevant examples and conclude your answer. One of the most common questions is, how do I keep going for 5 to 6 minutes, right? Now, whatever answer you have, you frame it well, and you put that in the structure, and you give examples. One thing that most people miss out on is examples. If you're able to give examples, you will definitely be able to stretch your answer for 5 to 6 minutes without a doubt. So if you go prepared, and if you structure your answer as well, you think about what are the arguments in favor, what are the arguments against, etc. You will be able to speak very easily for 5 to 6 minutes. All right, before we wrap up the session quickly, any questions? Please feel free to write them on the Q&A or the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them. Someone wants me to go to the previous slide. You want to look at the introduction. So introduction is more like paraphrasing the question a little bit, right? And 2 strong arguments in favor. Like I said, it is not just about presenting an opinion, but also supporting it with reasons, and give some relevant examples from your doctor shadowing experience, from your volunteering, etc. And then conclude your answer. Please do not leave an answer with, well, that's about it, So always conclude your answer, sum up your answer, whatever points you've mentioned, and that leaves a really good impression as well. And I believe that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish all of you good luck, and I look forward to working with you.